Wells Fargo has been cleared of its asset cap in the U.S. Let's start there with Paul Goldberg, senior equity analyst with Bloomberg Intelligence. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you.
So the asset cap lifts for Wells Fargo, but in practical terms, what does it mean for them?
For the Wells Fargo, so they can grow their balance sheet again, they can expand their businesses at a faster pace, just all over across the bank. There have been some estimates that over the 7 years that they've been under the cap, they might have foregone about $40 billion worth of revenue. So they should be able to start catching up on that.
Their problems began, Paul, in 2018. They had aggressive sales practices. How did the bank convince regulators that it changed?
Well, I think there have been a lot of changes throughout the businesses, because when they were originally gone under the cap, it was mortgage servicing, it was loan servicing, it was fraudulent account practices and such. So they've been gone through a number of remediation steps. They had a number of consent orders that they had to comply, and that's what we've seen in the last few years, that they've been able to clear some of that compliance with those consent orders, which they now finished and were able to get from under the cap.
They had quite a long timeline under that cap. Is that unusual?
No, it's not unusual. It might have been a little bit longer than originally anticipated, because over the last few years you've already heard the talk that they might be getting soon from under the cap, but it's not unusual. Like, even if you think of the TD, which had smaller issues, just the AML issues, versus the Wells Fargo Bank, their timeline is still going through the 2028, just the timeline that they put out when they were announcing it. So 4 years at least.
Okay, so that's the timeline for the TD. How's the bank navigating so far?
I think they've made a lot of progress. So one of the things that they were doing right away, they were reducing their balance sheet to accommodate the existing business by 10%. They've gone through a good chunk of that and should be done by the end of this fiscal year. They're readjusting their investment portfolio by $50 billion. They've gone through a good chunk of that, so it's helping their net interest income by almost $500 million this year. It was costly. It might cost them upwards of $1.5 billion when they're done with it, but they're making this progress. They also making a lot of AML-related investments. They're hiring people. They're improving their systems. They've obviously gone through the management change. Again, it's not free. It's costing them about $500 million US this year, and probably a similar amount next year, but they're going through it.
You mentioned a bunch of changes they're making, but what will it have to prove to regulators in the U.S. for the cap to lift?
Well, I think they'll have to prove that their AML systems are in order, that they're not having any issues over that 4-year period. And I think that should be able to clear them from that cap. But again, we're looking 4 or 5 years out.
We saw latest earnings as well from TD. What's your take on what they had to say in their latest results?
So I think the latest results, this fiscal second quarter, was pretty good across the businesses. Obviously, the U.S. operations were capped from growth, and they did cut their balance sheet from the cap of $434 billion to $399. So they're making that progress there without having too much sacrifice on the profitability side, some, but not enormous. They did increase their provisions for performing loans because of the trade wars, but that's similar to the other banks in Canada as well.
All right, Paul, we appreciate you joining us. Paul Goldberg is the senior equity analyst at Bloomberg Intelligence.